Yeah, this is BB speaking.
I have Dave Burl on the other line.
I'm Diamond Dave. I'm an action figure.
19 years writing about music. Dozens of cassettes in a drawer. Get ready for conversations that time very nearly forgot. Dave's Old Interview Tapes.
Hi, I'm Indianapolis Star reporter Dave Lindquist, and welcome to Dave's Old Interview Tapes, a podcast that digs up musical conversations from an era when your cell phone wasn't smart and being on MySpace wasn't dumb. Today's episode revisits a June 2001 interview with Billy Idol, the 80s star known for hit singles White Wedding, Rebel Yell, and Eyes Without a Face. We'll hear Billy talk about career hurdles presented by his punk rock roots.
The radio wouldn't play my songs because I had spiky hair.
Hear him credit MTV for saving his career.
Thank God that you could make videos and attract a young audience.
And hear him talk about a monster hit that got away.
I always used to laugh because, when it first came out, I was on holiday somewhere, and people were always coming up to me saying, "I love your new single."
Our in-studio guest for this episode of Dave's Old Interview Tapes is Will Pfaffenberger, known as Producer Will on the Smiley Morning Show on 99.5 WZPL. He's also the founder of the $3 Bill comedy troupe. Will, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Dave.
That's
in your
awesome.
tiny little booth. It's very intimate.
We're here at IndyStar HQ.
I love it.
Where the podcast happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I contacted you about being the guest on our Billy Idol episode, and you were a bit hesitant. We don't need our in-studio guests to be experts.
Oh, good, because I am not. I'm definitely not a Billy Idol expert at all.
But you said just enough to reel you in.
Yeah. It just sounded fun. This sounded fun to hang out. I've always wanted to hang out with you when it wasn't me being interviewed about something.
Good.
Where, we weren't in these roles where we had to, be professional. Now we can just hang out and talk about Billy Idol.
Now, it was very casual, the anecdote you told me about your Billy Idol introduction.
Oh, yeah. I have 3 older sisters, so I learned about Billy Idol. So 2 things I learned in the 80s. I learned how to actually properly put a vinyl record on a record player and drop the needle.
Nice.
Using a Billy Idol record because I think it was Don't Stop, had Money Money on it. I think it was the first track on it.
Yeah.
It was my favorite song when I was 5 years old. I would dance around our what amounted to some extra room in our house, and my mom would laugh at me and take photographs, and my sister would be angry that I was playing her records.
Here she come now, say money, money.
Now that's good stuff because that's the EP that preceded the proper solo album, and that of course, Money Money was a cover of a Tommy James song.
I just learned that. I was telling a story on the show, and it blows my mind when I learn about kind of this
Covers and
it's this revisionist history for me because I'm not so deep into it to know all of these things. But then it was revealed to me on the air, of course, make me look as foolish as possible, that Money Money was actually a cover, and here I was crediting Billy Idol my entire life.
Did Dave Smiley drop that knowledge?
I think he might have. Because he brought it up for some reason. He will play these random old records into the middle of the show. I'm like, what? Who's covering this Billy Idol song?
Nice.
And he's like, no, this is the original. Well, thank you.
The thing that
I'm not 100 years old.
The thing that fascinates me about that song, and there are a couple other songs in pop culture, but the entire world apparently knows these dirty words that you're supposed to insert to these songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where does that start? How does that catch fire?
It just must be something people like to do late at night. I was never allowed to go to those things.
But there's a viral element to that happened without the internet.
Yeah, no, it's just the people, right? The people started it.
It's like one frat party sometime they did it, and then maybe it spread across campus, and then another school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would guess that's how it goes down. But how did they do that then? Because that must have been really powerful. Because you think about it, now you could do it one time, get viral on YouTube, whatever, post it on Facebook or Twitter. Everybody knows it then. And then it's suddenly a fad.
Right.
But then, just think when Money Money first came out, how did it have to spread?
Here's our secret chant of filth.
How filthy are you allowed to be on this podcast, by the way?
That's as far as we're taking it.
We're
at the line.
I just want to be sure
we're pulling back.
Yeah.
The story of Dave's old interview tapes is that when the Indianapolis Star moved offices from Pennsylvania Street to our current location in Circle Center Mall, I opened up a desk drawer, and there were dozens of these cassette tapes of interviews I made with celebrities between 98 and 2004. And this podcast is my effort to bring them out, revisit them, look at them in a different context, sometimes 17, 18, 19 years later.
What is that, 6 years of using cassette tapes to do interviews? What made you start using cassettes and end using cassettes?
Well, the end, I guess, is easier just because we had digital recorders.
So that's about the time that you started going digital, Dave. And you just delete those files off your computer.
Well,
will you ever discover a drawer full of MP3s one day?
I wish. This whole process has made me think a lot about that and the fleeting nature of these conversations. But I've always been someone who's wanted to record an interview because then it's verbatim and you know exactly what the person said. And I'm not good at trying to type while someone's talking to me on the phone.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Why you'd record it. Are you allowed to paraphrase in journalism? I'm not a journalist, so I don't know. I'm allowed to lie whenever I want. I'm allowed to basically make up the fake news, as El Presidente would tell us.
If I'm paraphrasing, it's not inside the quotation marks.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
But you probably are like constant pro and get it right every time. I know I've done a couple of interviews with you, and I'm shocked at what I've said to you. And how you've exactly recorded what I've said. And I sometimes wish that you would have paraphrased me to make me sound better than I did.
That's an interesting question, because there are people that you know the essence of what they're saying, but they're not articulating it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's when we work outside the quotation marks, we can help a little bit. This particular Billy Idol tape is from a June 2001 interview. He was coming to town to play a WZPL Uncle Sam Jam show at Clips Music Center, known then as probably Verizon in the post-Deer Creek days.
Yeah, I heard the story about this. It's weird how all this is coming up. This was meant to be. This is fake.
Good.
Our co-host, or one of our members of our show, Tony, was doing promotions then, and remembers the post party to this show.
Oh, good.
Where they go back to the hotel, and she doesn't exactly know who Billy Idol is, but she walks in the hotel, and everybody's had some drinks, and somebody in the lobby is playing piano and rocking out to the piano in the lobby. And they're all a little bit annoyed because it's that guy in the hotel. It's like if I went to the hotel and found a piano, I'd sit down and like play chopsticks or something or whatever. But it turned out to be Billy Idol there jamming out to the piano, like on the piano, just after this Jingle Jam show.
He always seems like a gregarious, fun guy.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a punk rocker, so he ought to be. You would hate to see Billy Idol sad and wanting to just go back to his hotel room to unwind with a glass of wine and, get in the robe or something. You want to see him partying all night.
It's interesting to think about Billy Idol in the context of punk rock, because that's definitely where he started. He was in a band in England called Generation X, which was more or less a contemporary of your massive punk bands, the Sex Pistols, the Clash. But that band never made it over to the States to really become as popular as those other bands. When Billy kind of caught fire was in the new wave era, but he was certainly a guy who had the look of punk rock. And to me, I was in high school when Billy's hits started coming, and to me they all just seemed to heap one on top of the other, whether it was Dancing With Myself, which was originally a Generation X song, White Wedding, Rebel Yell.
Yeah.
And in my locker of high school,
oh yeah, tell me, I
had a Billy Idol poster. The kind of.
Well, that's better than like a wig. Occasionally, I just like to put the hair on.
Maybe some half leather gloves,
some fingerless gloves.
Yeah.
I could see you in that now.
Man,
I love to see high school Dave Lindquist. and his fingerless gloves and Billy Idol poster.
Well, most of my focus was on the Future Farmers of America,
Oh, yeah.
where I was a livestock
A target
judge.
for cars downtown when you had your convention every year.
Well, back then the national convention was in Kansas City.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Did you look forward to that every year?
Yes.
You're going to go show how punk rock a future farmer of America could be.
I was probably pretty straight-laced within the FFA umbrella.
I don't want to ruin your credibility now.
But,
You're right. Straight-laced Dave Lindquist.
In my locker at high school,
Sorry.
I had a Billy Idol. It was like maybe a page out of Circus magazine.
Of course.
I didn't really go for like Randy Rhoads or Iron Maiden. I did gravitate toward Billy. And my hometown is 1,300 people in central Illinois.
Small.
And you are from Avon,
Yeah.
which is probably comparatively a metropolis to what it was when you grew up.
Oh, yeah. No, it's way different than it was when I was growing up. It was one stoplight and a Dairy Queen and a Monty's Market when I was probably during this era when
Yeah.
you were rocking out with your Circus Mag posters and FFA. But my sisters still were very much influenced. In fact, you probably graduated, I think, around the same time that they did. I had three older sisters. They graduated in 86, 89, and 93 or 92.
87. I'm the class of 87.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I was always influenced by whatever they were influenced by. So I had cassette tapes of, that hand-me-down of Tiffany and Billy Idol and Milli Vanilli and Vanilla Ice. And it just like that era, that span of time,
Yeah.
I remember being like introduced to music for the first time in kind of that era.
That's
or
fun.
pop music.
Well, I continue to be impressed by that vinyl reference to Billy. I had cassettes,
Yeah,
which
sorry.
is good for Dave's old interview tapes.
Well, I mean, it's hip now to have records, but then it was probably hip to have cassettes because it was the new media then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Portable,
we
jam
considered
box.
ourselves poor. It was my dad's old stereo record player, which is one of those. What is it called? A cabinet?
It's a piece of furniture.
It's a piece of furniture it's just a record player that holds records underneath it and two poor speakers wired into it.
All right.
Yeah, and that's how we listened to music. Then my dad had a ton of records. He was in a band and loved music. That's how I learned how to play the piano and was introduced to music was through my dad. We had an organ, a full organ in my house.
Wow. So he maybe played Moni Moni.
I think that he probably learned it for me. I don't have any verifiable proof, but he always tried to do. He had the big fake book of music,
Yeah.
so we'd sit down and he could sight read and play that stuff.
I think 96 Tears is the ultimate rock and roll keyboard song. You know that
Okay.
one? 96
No,
Tears?
I don't. How's it go?
Question mark and the Mysterians, 96 Tears.
Too many teardrops for one heart to be crying.
Thinking about Billy's transition from Generation X vocalist to solo artist in the States, I was interested in that process.
Even if maybe my music wasn't 100% punk rock, as you would have thought of it in 1977, I think we all had punk rock attitude.
Yeah.
And, if we hadn't expanded the music, I don't know what would there have been different about Billy Idol or Generation X, if you see what I mean there.
In preparation for this, I know a few songs, Moni Moni, Rock the Cradle, White Wedding, all the ones everybody knows. But then there was one that is a hit that I never heard, which was like Eyes Without
Without a Face.
Eyes Without a Face or something.
Got No Human.
And I was like, I've never heard this. I want to hear it. And I'm like, it's like he's singing.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, he really put a vocal effect on that one.
Got no human grace, your eyes without a face.
It's not really a rock song either. It's kind of this weirdo, new wave, soft rock, something or other. I can't even describe it, but this is kind of like that. I think that transition out of it just illustrated for me his range a little bit of going from he could be this punk rock guy or the rock guy, but then he was also kind of this something different out here.
Well, he was in the film The Doors, the 1991 film.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that a song like Eyes Without a Face, you hear some Jim Morrison kind of swagger.
Okay.
And the thing was that Billy was supposed to have a pretty big role in the movie. And he had a motorcycle accident.
Mm-hmm.
Wiped out, messed up his leg. So all he could do, whenever he was on camera, he was either sitting or on a couch or leaning on crutches. And it kind of botched his big acting
shot.
Debut. Yeah.
Did he want to do that? Did Billy Idol want to act a lot?
I talked with Billy about acting. Well,
did you?
I wouldn't mind. It's just sometimes it's hard for people to look around the Billy Idol thing.
Exactly.
Especially, they just get. I just know they get so used to your mannerisms and things that it's very hard for them to look around that. But it's a shame, really, because but I'd like to. I wouldn't mind having more opportunities.
So he wanted.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. He wanted it, but he couldn't get around being Billy Idol. He was too good at being Billy Idol. Why would you want to be anybody else? If you're Billy Idol, that's pretty strong to be Billy Idol. In fact, I didn't realize he was in any other movies other than The Wedding Singer.
Oh yeah, that really kind of helped him a lot, being in That Wedding Singer.
What did it?
In terms
Did he go do other things after that?
Okay, let me rephrase that. Maybe recharacterize that. It helped him in terms of being framed in pop culture in a modern context. Without The Wedding Singer, he's like really kind of old news. Yeah,
well, that's what I was kind of thinking when I saw The Wedding Singer for the first time. It was high school. I saw that movie. I was a big Adam Sandler fan, big comedy fan, SNL fan. Saw Billy Idol in that movie, and I thought, man, that's a real nice tribute to an old school guy at that time in the late 90s.
Right, exactly.
And now he really is an old school guy, nostalgic, playing a lot of casinos and things like that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing Dave's Old Interview Tapes does is make you think about time.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed Billy Idol, this interview in 2001. He was 45 years old.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And I remember, as we were just saying, in 2001, Billy seemed like, you're not relevant. It's over.
Right. Yeah.
And today,
yeah, you're playing the nostalgic circuit.
Yeah.
You're playing the old people gigs.
And here I am in 2017, north of 45.
How do you? I mean, like you can live on in infamy because you just continue to write about the latest trends, right?
I'm off.
It's like what we do on our show.
I'm often thankful that I'm on this side of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, you don't have to write a fad. You don't have to be in an era. You just get to commentate on the current era.
That is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a really good thing, and we're on that side too. We can love Bruno Mars as much as we can love Train, as much as we can love, I don't even know, who's a Jar of Hearts lady, Christina Perri or something like that, where they all come and go, but we get to kind of stick around and remain the same.
When we think about the definitive Billy Idol characteristic or trait, it has to be the hair.
Sure, of course. That's why I said you had a wig in your locker.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else you think of.
Billy spoke to me about the two-edged sword of that.
The double-edged sword of his hair?
Signature hair.
When I first put records out in America as Billy Idol, they, for instance, the radio wouldn't play my songs because I had spiky hair. They said, well, punk rock doesn't sell advertising, so we don't care what the music's like. We're not playing anybody with spiky hair. So the next song, Hot in the City, I took my picture off it, and they didn't twig it was someone who had a punk look. So it got to number 18 in the charts, and then the next song, White Wedding, we put my picture back on it, and they wouldn't play it. So really, something like MTV became kind of essential because what it was another platform of a way of getting through to people without having to change who I was.
Right.
I have a hard time believing that it really affected his ability to get played on the radio because in my mind he's always been a legend and those songs were always popular. So I have no idea because my sisters loved it and they had the records and this was probably 87 or something. So they had to learn that from somewhere and the only place to get music at the time was the radio. So what is he talking about?
I think he was walking into a big monolith of Styx, REO Speedwagon.
Oh, yeah.
Kansas.
Big, weird.
Boston.
Oh, yeah, like cowbell rock bands.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So he was trying to break the mold there.
And his biggest ally turned out to be MTV.
Ah, yes. That's where you could get the younger, fresher audience
Yeah.
ready to embrace the punk lifestyle.
Thank God that you could make videos and attract a young audience who would then phone up the radio station, and the radio station, well, we're getting all these calls, but we've got to play it, you know. So it sort of proved to them that in the end they were wrong, that in the end punk rock, I suppose, does sell advertising.
I could listen to Billy Idol speak
Yeah.
and laugh.
Well, no wonder he couldn't get around not being Billy Idol, or couldn't play a different character, because everybody wants him to be Billy Idol. Oh, he can't even not be Billy Idol in just a simple, casual phone interview.
He needs a remake of The Wedding Singer.
Yes, he does. Let's bring him back. I did look at his show schedule, and I said earlier that he was just playing casinos, but that seems to be kind of what he's doing now. Yeah, he needs something to pop him back into pop culture. I saw that didn't he come here for Van's Warped Tour and play two songs in 2005 or something?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that ever did anything for him or not. Does he need a van? Does he need a younger vehicle? Does he need to make a guest appearance on American Horror Story? What's the?
Oh no, that would be good.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy, Indianapolis' own Ryan Murphy, he could maybe help Billy Idol out with that.
Yeah, I don't know why he hasn't reached out and tried to give him a new platform to shine. That's his whole thing, is taking people like underserved people. Right. Whoever thought we'd talk about Billy Idol being an underserved person and really putting him in the spotlight, normalizing them again.
Now, I don't know if you know this. We've been talking about movies. We've been talking about rock and roll. Billy could have had the crowning single of his whole career, I think, if he would have accepted the offer to record Don't You Forget About Me.
Really?
Yeah. That song was written by a guy named Keith Forsey, who produced Billy's first two solo albums. And Keith got into movie soundtrack work. I think he has a writing credit on that Flashdance, What a Feeling song.
Uh-huh.
Keith Forsey was working on this John Hughes film, The Breakfast Club, and had this song, Don't You Forget About Me.
Right.
He took it to Billy Idol. Billy said, nah, not really my thing. Gave it to Simple Minds. And it became...
Yeah, that's the only thing they did, right?
No, that's not true, but...
I can't think of one other... You can tell me what they did that was bigger than Don't You Forget About Me.
I'm not saying anything they did was bigger than Don't You Forget About Me. But I would not call them a one-hit wonder. Okay.
Well, why do you have the reason why he didn't take that song?
Billy, I think, did tell me.
Did you have a shot to record that or and pass? Or?
Well, I expect at one point maybe Keith was thinking about maybe me, or I think he was thinking maybe even Brian Ferry at one point.
Yeah.
But I know that Keith had been looking at Simple Minds for quite a long time, and I think in a way he did really write it for them.
Uh-huh.
But I always thought, I always used to laugh because, you know, when it first came out, I was on holiday somewhere, and people were always coming up to me saying, I love your new single. I'll be going, what new single? Because Don't You Forget About Me.
Wow.
Yeah, Billy did eventually record a version for a compilation at some point.
And it obviously wasn't as good as the one that everybody loves from Breakfast Club.
That's probably true. I think there was something with Billy and his persona that maybe there was a vulnerability in that song that he didn't want to share with people.
Well, I don't know. I just, going back and listening to some of his stuff, it seemed like he always did have a little bit of vulnerability. I think that's what he was talking about, his transition from being the punk voice of X to this new wave thing or whatever. But I think that what was injected into it was a little bit of vulnerability. It wasn't just a hard edge. He has a song, White Wedding. It seems bizarre that he would turn that down.
I won't harm you or touch your defenses, vanity, insecurity.
I wonder if he really feels like he let it get away.
Well, yeah, I hope he's doing okay, I hope he was able to, feed his family and pay his bills.
Well, Billy did have his low points. There was a 1994 drug overdose and a 1991 incident in which he punched a dinner date in the mouth. You can
A woman?
You can Google.
Or a guy?
You can Google more and learn about that. But in 2001, he seemed to be in a pretty good spot, and he talked to me a little bit about the perils of a rock and roll lifestyle.
I don't think you could stay completely living that complete burnout existence forever, you know. It would just, in the end, it just fries your mind, your brain. You've got nothing left.
I like in that clip, you sound like an intimate friend. You're allowing him to confide in you. You're just like, yeah, man. Tell me more. Lay it all out. Yeah, he did. He was a big drug guy, right?
Apparently so.
And now he doesn't do drugs as much. I read in an interview or something that he calls himself soberish,
Okay.
which is not 100% sober.
Yeah.
Like the occasional, I'm mostly healthy, mostly so. I do Pilates. You can see that on my Twitter account. But I occasionally do like to dip back into the old weed every now and then.
It's difficult doing a phone interview, and you know this.
I wasn't supposed to make you feel bad, but I thought it was nice. Like it felt like you were getting him to like tell you secrets.
I don't know. It's just a weird thing. It's like I know that every person I talk to who's a touring musician, to me, I'm just a name, a newspaper name next to a time.
Yeah.
You know, Cleveland Plain Dealer 10 a.m., Indianapolis Star 10:20, Chicago Tribune 10:40.
Oh yeah, we do those weird phone interview tours too, and we always immediately draw attention to the fact that we're one of a billion. The people we're interviewing, they tend to get a kick out of that because they know they have no idea what. So we remind them who we are and say like, you know, how's this tour going, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I just try to maybe catch someone off guard with a question that's not something they've heard the last 10 interviews.
And this was about him not leading a burnout life. Was this the one you think
I'm not saying that was a good question at all.
I thought it was. I just thought it was interesting how he kind of got real. He kind of got vulnerable there. And then he's like, "Let me sing you the song that got away. Don't you forget about me." Dave Lindquist. Is that what you try to do with people? Do you try to get them to be a little more intimate, a little more vulnerable in your interviews? What do you try to get out of people when you talk? You've talked to a bunch of stars.
I think I'm always looking for an Indianapolis or Indiana plot line.
A local twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting anything Barbara Walters-esque.
You don't want Billy Idol to be in tears at the end of your interview.
No. But since we've been talking about the 80s, I will share an anecdote that I know won't pop up anywhere on Dave's old interview tapes because A, this person was not a musician, and B, I didn't record this. But the first time I met David Letterman was on the track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway before a race. It was a year he had announced that he was going to retire, but the retirement was still like a little more than a year away. I kind of was camped out. I kind of knew where he might be walking that day. And as he came up behind me, I just kind of folded myself into the walk with him, and I introduced myself and said I was from the Indianapolis Star. And Dave said, "Oh, how are things at the Star? I used to carry the Star." I just remember thinking, and I told him this. I'm like, this is a real meta moment for me because I was a newspaper carrier when I was a teenager. Every night I would record your show on a VCR, do my paper out in the morning, and then I'd watch your show before I went to school.
Yeah.
And he told me he thought that was cool. I don't know. That's just maybe a standard line you tell someone when anyone
that's
tells
cool.
you any kind of story.
That's cool, man. Yeah. I like you. You got good chops. You're going to make it.
I asked him about favorite Indiana guests because I knew the show was coming to an end in about a year. And he said, "Well, I really like talking to drivers, Indy 500 drivers." And John Hyatt came up, a great songwriter. He's from Indianapolis. and I mentioned, I always thought that John was kind of in the same vein as Warren Zevon, a great singer-songwriter who was a personal friend of Dave's. And people know him for that song, Werewolves of London, among many great songs that Warren wrote. And again, we're right there on the track of the Indianapolis 500, right? Mm-hmm. And Dave said, I'll always remember the last night that Warren played my show. And if people don't know, Warren struggled with cancer and died, but he made at least one or two albums that addressed his illness. So Dave said, I remember the last night he was on my show, and I went to go visit him in his dressing room after the show, and I just couldn't believe it because I got to the room, and he was packing up his guitar, and he gave me his guitar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
That's pretty heavy.
That's a giant. That's a giant story.
So that's like 3 minutes. That's my 3-minute interaction with David Letterman.
And he gave you some delicious goodness there. I mean, see, you elicit trust out of people somehow. That's good.
With Billy in 2001, we tried to end on a high note as well.
That's what he loves, getting high.
He told me about his 13-year-old son and an interest in music.
It's pretty fantastic, really, to see that for a lot of young people, it still is, the way to get away from home and, responsibilities. And it still looks like it's the exciting thing to do, just like I thought when I was a kid.
Right.
It looked like, I watched the Beatles or the Who, Ready, Steady, Go, and they were going to go off to America and fly around the world. You just thought, those guys, that's the job.
Yeah.
And then writing your own songs and saying what you felt, and it just seemed to be, true freedom sort of thing. It's really great to see that young people today, a lot of them still feel like that.
I know I did as a kid, and I still do. I still have fantasies of being in a band or playing music and touring. I think it'd be an awesome experience. I got a small little taste of what that might be like with when I worked for Bob and Tom. They did these shows a long time ago. I don't know if they still do them. They're live shows in some of their markets, their syndicated markets. And we did a little summer tour or something one time, and that was a blast. And I was in a band in high school, a rock band in high school.
Hold up.
Yeah.
What did you play?
I played the keyboard, piano, and sang. So that's what I did. And then eventually became just being a lead singer because it was hard to get a piano into places where they would allow our band to play.
Got to ask the band name?
Rewind.
Yes.
It was a name that had been given to the band before I joined it based off of a videotape. They had to come up with a name for a battle of the bands in high school, and somebody looked down and the sticker said, Be Kind, Rewind. And so they chose Rewind. And that's what it ended up being for the duration of the band. The life of the band.
No.
But we actually did record 2 original albums. They were terrible, but we did record 2 albums.
Wow. Well, I want to ask if there's a connotation of oldies or retro material for a band called Rewind.
Yeah, everybody asked that question, especially when we were playing. It had nothing to do with it. It just ended up being the name of the band.
80s only. Joel.
80s only Rewind. Yeah, no, we did. You know what? We hardly played any covers. As much as that might astound you, we played a lot of original material. But yeah, we still have the albums, and people from our school still reference songs and things that happened in those songs. We actually just got together. Maybe it was early this year, just to get together and jam, play a couple of the old songs. And we realized that at 35, there are a lot of things that feel super creepy singing about teenage girls. Nowadays, they were like, if we ever would actually play a show again, we would have to change all of this because this would be the most uncomfortable show to watch for people. But yeah, it's totally an escape. The appeal is still there for me, for sure.
Awesome.
How about you? Did you ever, for as much as you love music and have spent a career writing about it, have you ever wanted to do it?
not in any realistic way.
What does that mean?
I wanted to be a sports writer from the time I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So I was just on journalism. That's the track for all time. Yeah.
But that's it. You're a sports writer, and then it was like, oh, there's a music job opening?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that happened between point A and point B. But I was lucky enough to grow up in a music household. My father, who is now 90 years old, still plays music with friends in public 3 to 4 times a week.
Mine does too.
Yeah.
My dad was in a band in the 60s, and they just recently, not recently, it seems recent, but in the last 10 or so years, reunited. He writes all the music. He'll sheet music out.
Yeah.
All the music for the musicians in the band, and they're mostly the original players from his band in
That's awesome.
high school.
Yeah.
And they go out and they play, Yardbirds and whatever else was popular. It's awesome. All these songs that he would play on the piano, and I had no idea why he ever learned them or what the origin was. It was because of this band.
I know that your dad knows 96 Tears by question mark.
Oh, I have no doubt he would. Yeah.
So my dad raised me on a steady diet of Hee Haw and Lawrence Welk.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a brother who's 10 years older than I am. He's 10 years older than I am, and every day of my second grade school year, he would drive me to school in his massive Plymouth Fury. And it had an 8-track player. And I think almost every day we listened to Sgt. Pepper's on 8-track.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that trident of Sgt. Pepper's, Hee Haw, and Lawrence Welk gave me the basis of music knowledge.
It was the Dave Lindquist stew.
Yeah, exactly.
That has become the culinary delight you enjoy in the IndyStar day to day.
Thank you, Will. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I enjoyed. I hope this was enough about Billy Idol.
This is an interesting episode because I think we have a nice amount of Billy Idol, but also a larger arc of 1980s and popular culture.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, let me know if you need me to be an expert, allegedly.
I think
on
I
something
might
again.
I might hire Rewind for the Dave's Old Interview Tapes Season 1 rap party.
Oh yeah, you can go listen to our music and we can tell you about our history, which was very brief and very bad.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Dave's Old Interview.